are, whatever heaviness you carry today, whoever you love, we welcome you into this community. Today we have chaplains available after the service if you need someone to talk with. We also believe that everyone has the ability to care for one another. So we encourage you to be present, to listen without judgment, and affirm one another. So we invite all of us to care for each other this day. At 2 p.m., we also invite you who are in moral and faithful opposition to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade to be together here at Fort Waldron for a time of conversation, lament, and mutual support. So we welcome you this day.
Thank you, Justin.
Good morning, Beacon.
Good morning.
My name is Scott Schnipper, today's worship associate, he, him, his. When we kindle the flame of our chalice each Sunday, each morning, each gathering, we kindle the spark within us, not only within each person, but also within this community. Have no doubt that have no doubt is a beacon. Today's spark comes not only from this match, which I did not prepare in advance. Today's spark comes not only from this match. Today's spark also comes from the poetry of Gwendolyn Brooks, which I am so privileged to be able to read. She gives us our charge in her poem, Paul Robeson, the subject of which is one of our New Jersey ancestors, born in Princeton and a Rutgers University graduate. Gwendolyn writes, "That time we all heard it cool and clear, cutting across the hot grit of the day. The major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bale and barge, and other symptoms of an old despond. Warning in music words, devout and large, that we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond."
This is life. Just go with it. You can do it, Scott.
This flame is lit for us and who we are together.
As the first woman any American denomination had ever ordained as a minister, Olympia Brown, a Universalist, I'm proud to say, had already made history, and she was determined to do it again. With the promise of bed, board, and a traveling companion and a carriage and driver, in 1867, Brown set off for Kansas to campaign for an amendment that would give the women of Kansas the vote. On arrival, she found neither bed, board, a traveling companion, nor a driver and a carriage. The local Republicans, who had promised it to her, said that they had run out of money. More likely, they had put a finger to the wind and changed their minds about supporting the amendment. Nevertheless, she persisted. That summer, Olympia Brown delivered more than 300 speeches. Now, picture yourself with all the planes, trains, cars, and buses available, with smartphones and Airbnbs from coast to coast. Picture committing to more than 300 speeches in a year, let alone a summer. Then think what it meant 155 years ago. A woman on her own, Brown trusted others would provide a meal, a bed, and transportation. And that's how it played out. An eloquent speaker, she won many new supporters to the cause. Yet on election day, less than a third of the voters supported the amendment. That is, white men. They also defeated an amendment to give the vote to African American men. Nevertheless, she persisted. Supporters could feel that the momentum was building, and surely the vote for women was coming soon. 3 years later, nationwide, black men got the vote. But still there was no vote for women. Brown, back at her ministry, continued to campaign for it. Then in 1876, the centennial year of the Declaration of Independence, she went to Washington to plead the cause before a congressional committee. 11 years later, there was still no vote for women. Nevertheless, she persisted. She resigned her ministry to focus on the vote full time. In 1913, Alice Paul and Lucy Burns invited Brown to join a new political party dedicated to getting the vote for women. 4 years later, we entered World War I, the war that President Woodrow Wilson said would make the world safe for democracy. And Olympia Brown said, "We cannot say that the United States is a democracy as long as women cannot vote." The Women's Party added pacifism to its agenda and demonstrated long and hard against Wilson's re-election. Many women were arrested. In prison, when they went on hunger strike, guards beat them and force-fed them. Nevertheless, they persisted. Most public opinion called them unpatriotic. They were saying that in the interest of unity, votes for women should wait until the end of the war. Women were asked to do the same thing during the Civil War, said Brown. They were told that as soon as the war was over and the Negro enfranchised, they would be given the ballot, but that did not happen. And when Wilson went to France to negotiate the peace, at a demonstration, Brown, now old, frail, and tiny, burned a copy of his speech and said, "I have fought for liberty for 70 years, and I protest against the president's leaving the country with this old fight here, unwon." And finally, on August 20th, 1920, women got the vote. And finally, on November 2nd, Olympia Brown, now 85 years old, and one of the few survivors of the early campaign for the vote, finally, Olympia Brown got what they had all been fighting for and cast her first ballot.
I just want us to take a moment to look at Olympia Brown. I don't know if that picture was taken before or after she cast her ballot, but I just want to say I would not want to go up against her. And thank you, Helen. Thank you for lifting up an ancestor, and her story of persistence and goodness knows that we will need to draw strength from her actions in the days and the months and the years to come. I hope that the story of Olympia Brown is nestled within you, so on those days when you think, I can't go on, you think, well, Olympia Brown did, and so can I. And she is not the only ancestor. So I invite you into a time of prayer, of meditation, of reflection, and I would like for us to call forth our ancestors, if only to remind ourselves that every generation has known days like our own. And so I invite you to call out the names of beloved people, ancestors who have inspired you. The prophets, the priests, the poets, the dreamers, the builders, the organizers, the martyrs. I'd invite you to call them out in this room or write them in the chat, those ancestors who've inspired you. I'm wearing her earrings. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Who else? Mary Wollstonecraft, Paul Robeson, Gwendolyn Brooks, A. Powell Davies, James Reeb, Viola Liuzzo, Howard Thurman. So many names. I invite you now to call beloved ancestors, known and unknown, in your own lineage. Some of you already started bringing the names of fathers and mothers. Call out the names of them, both genetic and chosen. People with great and grand in their names, mentors, teachers, neighbors, the people who made you, you. Call their names into this room. Write them in the chat. Who are they?
Nancy Dan. Younger sister. Older brother. Nikki Hayden.
It's important to lift up their names. It's important to bring them in the room. It's important to bring them with us on days like today. Gathered with our ancestors, would you join me in a prayer? You can place your hands on your lap. You can place them in prayer position if you want. I tend to not. Sometimes I put them on my heart, or I just close my eyes and open myself. And I'm going to say a line, and I invite you to say back to me, "Take courage, beloved. The way leads on." Would you say that with me? Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. Beloved ones, we are at siege. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. So many of the freedoms that you, our ancestors, persistently fought for are being cast aside. They're being overturned. They're being dismantled piece by piece. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. We are moving further and further away from a country by the people, of the people, for the people. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. You, our ancestors, passed the torch on to us, and we are sorry for all the ways that we got too comfortable, for all the times that we took our rights for granted, for not listening to those most impacted, for not showing up and leaving the work for others to do. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. To you, our ancestors, we want you to know that we feel scared. Oh, beloved, are we scared? We feel angry. We feel tired and sad. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. We know that this is not new, these feelings, that you have felt anger and sadness and fatigue and scared. You have felt fear in your own struggles in your own time, and you taught us that we are more than our feelings, and you taught us how to channel our feelings into power. Take courage, beloved. The way leads on. And so that's our promise to you, our ancestors. The lament will pass through our beings, but together, we will channel those feelings into the power that we need. So take courage, beloved. The way leads on. Let the congregation say, Amen.
Good morning. From this prayer of lament, let us light candles together and extend the spiritual care of our community. Good morning. I'm Kathy Menendez, she, her, hers, and I'm a chaplain here at Beacon. This morning, we light a candle of sorrow for our lament and our outrage. We light a memorial candle for all the people who have died because they did not have access to safe, affordable reproductive care, including abortions. Hold their names in your hearts. Even in these days of lament, still there is joy. It's our spiritual task to hold it alongside our anguish. And so, we light a candle for the joys present in every moment, like the flowers blooming in my backyard. And a candle of thanksgiving for one another, for a faith that reminds us every day that our lives and that our love has more power than hate. For this and for so much more, we invite you to come forward now to light a candle here in the sanctuary or wherever you are, maybe on your own home altar.
Good morning. Once again, I'm so privileged to be able to read the voices from General Assembly this morning. Unitarian Universalists from all over the country and even around the world gathered in Portland, Oregon, and online for the first multi-platform General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Beacon sent 7 delegates, not including the 5 Beacon staff who attended, and 2 members and 1 youth who were not delegates, 15 in all. It was a deeply enriching experience, for the experience together grounded us in our faith and reminded us that we are not alone. We wanted to share with you a few of their impressions. Alejandro Polo urges all of us to listen to Reverend Bill Sinkford's sermon at the opening worship. And Alejandro loved the classic practice lifted up in the installation of leaders at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. When I inhale, I breathe in peace. When I exhale, I breathe out love. Janet Roberts lifts up the voices of Camellia Johan Shahi, a young adult BIPOC who was part of a panel about Canada's difficult path to passing the 8th principle, and the Reverend Julie Stoneberg, the white co-chair of the Canadian Unitarian Council's Dismantling Racism Study Group. Camellia Johan Shahi said, "Remember to bring in joy and play and have fun, because the heavy lifting is only heavy when you're not also having fun. You make change by having fun. You have to incorporate that into the process of doing this change, or else it's going to be too much to bear, too much to deal with, and you're going to burn out." Reverend Stoneberg said, "I love the card people often share that says, 'I want to be the kind of person my dog thinks I am.'" I think that's what our faith calls us to do, to be the kind of person that our faith calls us to be. And so much of the time, I feel inadequate. But that ongoing reminder, this is who I want to be, this is how I want to live my life, this is what gives my life meaning. Mary Early Zald, our own, didn't know what GA experience to choose for sharing. Then, as Reverend Sophia Betancourt was speaking during Saturday morning's general session, the sound system went out. Sophia continued her pastoral presence, led in singing Spirit of Life, invited us to thank the tech team. A UU from the audience encouraged continuing in Spanish, which many did, and others of us hummed in support. All until the sound came back. Love found a way. The Spirit filled the room and us. Dr. Tooley was also inspired by a few voices. Reverend Alicia Ford, "Surrender the tools you've been carefully taught. Surrender the tools you've acquired." Aisha Heiser, how we do anything is how we do everything. Deanna Vandeveer, "Faith equals openness to the emergence of the universe." Faith equals openness to the emergence of the universe. Another word for faith formation is humaning. Collective leadership is another word for love. The path isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. Mia Morris was inspired by Reverend Aisha Ansano, who said, "We are meant for liberation, compassion, and justice. Let us live into it and act as though we do. Liberation is necessary and possible, and we all have a role to make it so." Misa Iwama lifted up the voice of UUA President, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, in her President's Report. "Now is the time to create more joy and celebration, knowing that this is a source of power, of resilience, and of the imagination that we all need and the world needs. We were meant for joy, and joy feels like love, and it moves like freedom." I'm going to read that again. "Now is the time to create more joy and celebration, knowing that this is a source of power, of resilience, and of the imagination that we all need and the world needs. We were meant for joy, and joy feels like love, and it moves like freedom." And this one from Anonymous. The moon reminds us no matter what phase we are in, we are whole. 2023 General Assembly will once again be a multi-platform experience and in person in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you are interested in learning more, reach out to our lead ministry team.
And one last voice, this of the voice of our UUA president, Susan Frederick Gray, who on Friday gathered all of us at a protest in Portland, and hundreds upon hundreds gathered in Portland. And so we wanted to show you a short video of what she said to all of us. Thanks to our own tech crew for making it happen, hopefully over the live stream, between Irvin, who you all can't see, but who is maneuvering in the background, and Bill in the back, and Brian on our tech.
Struggle in solidarity. More of us than freedom. We are in this struggle in solidarity. More of us than there are of them. We will win. There is a Holy Spirit in us. A spirit of courage and power that knows that liberation is only possible when we are free, when every single one of us is free. We cannot be divided in these movements by identity. We have to fight on all the issues, because the system of fascism, authoritarianism, Christian ethno-nationalism is coming for us all. We're not going to be quiet. We will not be silent. We will not give up our rights. We will disobey the law. We will protect reproductive justice. Reproductive care is health care. It is a fundamental human right. It is about liberation. It is about agency. It is about bodily autonomy. Are you ready to fight for one another, to protect each other, to break the law, to make sure that anyone who wants or needs an abortion can access it? We are in this struggle together, my siblings. My siblings, we are in this struggle together. And the spirit of love and the spirit of justice and the spirit that is known by so many names is with us in this struggle. There are more of us than there are of them.
That our UUA president was the only religious leader that was at that protest. And I am so thankful that for so many people who were there, they were able to hear a voice of faith speaking for reproductive justice. That is what we as Unitarian Universalists do. We can say religion and faith have a voice here, and it is different than what you are hearing on the megaphones. Come be a part of this and let us change the world. And for our mission, our offering will now be greatly given and received. flying back from Portland yesterday. I have tested negative, just so everybody's not freaking out. I've been as careful as I can be. I could not wait to see you all this morning. It was good to be with other Unitarian Universalists, and it was great to come home and to be able to see all of you. A few years ago, my partner and I went to an Elvis Costello concert. It took place at a concert venue at the Sands Casino, not far from here, just about an hour. And in order to get to the concert venue, we had to walk through the actual casino. Of course, they make you walk through the casino. It was an enormous room, bigger than a football field, like a carpeted warehouse or airplane hangar. And the smell, oh, friends, it smelled like old cigarettes, you know? And I turned to my partner at that point and I said, are you even allowed to smoke cigarettes anymore indoors at a casino? The answer to that is yes. And my partner at that point was in a fit of sneezes. This is pre-pandemic, so no one was freaking out, but in a fit of sneezes because it had been so long since we had been in a room that smelled like old cigarettes. And then at that point, we got about halfway across the room, and there was this line in the carpet. There in the center, the sign read, "This side of the room is no smoking." And this side of the room is smoking. I just stood on the line and I looked back and forth, and everyone seemed to be following this rule that here on this piece of carpet there was a divide. But there was nothing else. There were no barriers outside of that carpeted line, and that was the only thing that separated the two. What a bit of magical thinking, I laughed to myself. To suppose that a carpeted line on the floor, no less, could disconnect one group of people from another, as if they weren't breathing the same air. Even as the truth, known and seen to all of us as the visible smoke, wafted and swirled and danced its way across this dividing line. And I thought, what other magical thinking is transforming non-existent barriers into real dividing lines? The masked from the unmasked, the non-believer from the believer, the poor from the rich, the black from the white, the angelic from the damned, those who enjoyed the new Obi-Wan Star Wars series from those who are trying to forget that the first 3 Star Wars even exist. There are so many stupid and meaningful ways in which we disconnect ourselves from one another. And so when I hear Helen's story that she shared with us of Olympia Brown, and I think about her going to Kansas, I see how much magical thinking has been going on for ages. And Reverend Brown had the audacity, the tenacity to name it for what it was. That is magical thinking. I mean, to consider that you're going overseas to tell us that we can show you how democracy works, and yet we're not doing it at home, that is magical thinking. Challenge after challenge, setback after setback, failure after failure. Olympia Brown was not fazed. My colleague, the Reverend Alicia Ford, reminded me this week that persistence is an act of faith. Persistence is an act of faith. What was it that made Olympia Brown so tenacious? She was a woman of immense faith, the first female-identified ordained woman in America that we know of. Reverend Ford charged me and other Unitarian Universalists this week with getting proximate to our faith, because that is going to be the way that we will persist. It will be our source. And beloved, we are going to need it. Now, I have to tell you that in moments like this, I am overwhelmed with fear. My great fear is that we are the embodiment of an Octavia Butler dystopian novel, that that's actually what's playing out right now, right? That we have just entered into it, and the thing that we never thought possible is now happening in real time. And when that fear dominates my being, I give up because I just feel like, well, it's just going to happen now. Octavia Butler wrote about it. George Orwell wrote about it. It's now just happening. But I want to remind you, and I want to remind myself, I'm going to say it so that I believe it. We are not a people of fear. We are a people of faith. We are a people of faith and persistence. But the question remains, how do we embody that? How do we embody that persistence? And so Reverend Ford taught me this week at General Assembly that we're asking one another the wrong question. The wrong question. So often when we meet one another, what's one of the main questions that we say? Hello, hi, what's your name? Then, how are you? Okay, that's one. Also, I am finding not a very good question because it's like fine and awful, right? Or fine. Anyway, how are you? And then when you're curious about them, what's the next question you're going to ask them? Where do you live? What do you do? Where do you live is also problematic, but what do you do is also hard. What do you do? How do you answer the question, what do you do? I will tell you, as an aside to this, that so often this week I was walking and I'd be meeting new people in Portland, and they'd traveled near and far to be there. And I said, so, where are you? Like in the world? And they're like, I'm in Portland right now with you. There are so many stupid questions. And then of course I had to, but what do you do? Alicia Ford says that's not the question that we need to be asking. We've got to start asking different questions. And she gave us 3. All right, are you ready for them? What are you grounded in? Could you imagine asking somebody, hey, what are you grounded in? What values guide your living? Who are you surviving and thriving for? You know what? So often in the sermon, it's just me up here talking. And I think maybe I should shut up and let you all do some of the talking. So I want you to think about, not in Unitarian Universalists, not in a paragraph, in one word, your answer to these questions. What are you grounded in? Okay, hold on. Thank you, Helen. But I'm actually going to do this keep it in your mind. What are you grounded in? If you want to steal Helen, she's got interdependence. What values guide your living? Think of an answer. Who are you surviving and thriving for? Who? All right, now I want you to turn to your neighbor. If you're watching via live stream, I want you to turn to your neighbor if you're with someone, but you can also write in the chat your answers to these questions. The questions should be in the chat. So I want you to turn to your neighbor, maybe the person that you've come with. If you're not ready to talk to anybody, you can just sit in quiet reflection and think about them, but turn to your neighbor and very quickly, 5 minutes, what are you grounded in? What values guide your living, and who are you surviving and thriving for? Ready? Go. Do you want to talk to someone? What are you grounded in? What values guide your living? Who are you surviving and thriving for? Who are you surviving and thriving for? All right, I'm going to ask you to come back. You can always continue to sit together if you want. Thanks to everybody for participating. And I really invite you after the service to not only talk to your partner, but just try asking one another these questions and see what comes up. Maybe our conversations would go from the surface level to actually what matters to us very quickly. What would it be like if we asked these questions not just of ourselves as individuals, but who we are as a people and as a religious community? What are we as a community grounded in? We say love guides this congregation, don't we, in our covenant? What values guide our living? The inherent worth and dignity of every person, spiritual wholeness, interdependence, anti-racism. We cannot be free until all of us are free. And then who? Who are we surviving and thriving for? Who? Is our congregation just about one another? Or are we about something larger? If you asked Olympia Brown this question, she might have some names of real people. But for her to persist the way she did to go to Kansas, Reverend Brown had to draw that circle wider. She was fighting for people that she didn't even know. That's who I see us becoming, beloved. The circle of who we are surviving and thriving for is being drawn wider and wider, not in the name of charity, but in the name of collective liberation. The last time I traveled to Portland was 2015, also for General Assembly. And from the first glimpses of Portland this time around on the tram to my hotel, I was stunned by the transformation of this city after COVID. Poverty was everywhere. Tent cities along train lines, on city sidewalks. As I walked from my hotel to the convention center, folks of all ages, babies, elders, all races, all genders. And to combat that growing populations of human beings without housing and access to toilets and showers and food and care, it appeared, as an outsider, it appeared as if the city and the businesses had just locked their doors. Every day I walked by a health clinic that had 3 signs on their windows. You just move from one window to the next, and it was like this journey through the signs. And only one sign was permanent. The first sign said, "Black Lives Matter." The next sign said, "We stand with you." And the third sign said, "No public restrooms. Doors are always locked." That last one was permanent. The local supermarket had security guards with tactical gear, And at the 7-Eleven, the security guard informed me that I had to have items delivered to me. I stood at the door where several unhoused people were standing, and I said, "So the way that I need to get an item from the 7-Eleven is that I have to use an app on my phone in order to order that single item, and then a delivery person from Grubhub or DoorDash is going to arrive, go in, hand it to them, and then hand it to me. That's what's about to happen?" The cashier is right there. No. Now, I have not done a deep dive into what is happening in Portland. I was just an observer. I'm sure there are layers of complexity there. I know that there are just from talking to people. But I was once again standing on that carpeted line of magical thinking. Those who have and those who have not. This line has a door key and this line does not. What about this makes sense, I wondered. What is happening here that is causing thousands of human beings to live in poverty? Locking the doors, hiring guards was a tactical fix for problems that required us as a human race to have an adaptive shift. And then on Friday, Roe was overturned. Now, I have to tell you, most of you know that we knew it was coming. We have been advocating on this issue for a while, but there is nothing that can prepare you for that headline. Fear flooded my body like the Hoover Dam bursting, and my fearful mind started grasping for the pettiest of reassurances. The first one being, it's not going to affect you. I'm not proud of that voice in my head, but that's what fear does. It responds to the question, who are you surviving and thriving for, and says, me, myself, and I. Ourselves alone. As long as I'm okay, then it's okay. But that is magical thinking, beloved, that separates us from one another. Gwendolyn Brooks and Paul Robeson, Reverends Olympia Brown and Alicia Ford change us to seek out the deeper truth. The truth is that we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond. And so, yes, abortion is no longer a national right, and that is a hard truth to face. But that's a reality that we are going to have to live with probably for years to come, but that doesn't mean that we won't be working every day for those who are impacted by this decision. Are you ready to fight for one another? Asked Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. Beacon, are you ready to fight for one another? Yes. Are you ready to fight for one another? Yes. Even if you don't feel like you can, are you ready to fight for one another? Yes. Who are we surviving and thriving for? That has got to be the question that we ask ourselves. Because I am surviving and thriving for you, yes, but I am surviving and thriving for people that I do not yet know. I am trying to cultivate the energy of Olympia Brown to do 300 speeches in a summer, even when people who made promises to me break those promises. I am showing up because it matters. It matters. We are not a people of fear. We are a people of faith, and that faith will lead to our persistence. Our faith, this faith of Unitarian Universalism, is grounded in and guided by love, a love that will persist within us and beyond us for days to come. Way back in Olympia Brown's time, the Universalists, like Hosea Ballou, they focused on getting into heaven. Reverend Ballou stood on the carpeted dividing line at that time that says, hey, these people get into heaven and these people don't. These people are going to hell. And Reverend Ballou said that is magical thinking. The real truth is nothing is keeping us from the circle of love. Beloved, we are descendants of that faith, but we don't want to wait until our deaths to join the circle of love. That is not something we will accept. We want heaven right here. We want heaven right now, and a heaven on earth that looks like collective liberation, not just for a few, not just for me, not just for my children, but for all of us. One day soon, Misa and I are going to teach you a song that Leah Morris taught us, all of us, at General Assembly, and today I'd like to close with the words and use them as a chant instead of a song. Leah's song goes, no one gets to heaven alone, we get there side by side. So I'm going to say something, and you say, we get there side by side. All right? Let's just try it out. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side. Right. No one does this work alone. We get there side by side. All right, people. Can I feel it in the room? Are we going to get there side by side? No one does this work alone. We get there side by side. No one does this work alone. We get there side by side. No one heals the world alone. We get there side by side. No one heals this world alone. We get there side by side. Are we going to do this alone? We get there side. That's right. We're going to get there side by side because no one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side. That is how we do this. This is not yours alone to do. We get there side by side. It is not only one of us. I don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. We are going to do this side by side. This is not just one group of people fighting for one thing. There are more of us than there are of them, and they are a part of us too. They don't know it yet. For the Universalists way back when, do you know what they said? We are going to drag you kicking and screaming into heaven. And that is what we are going to do. We might be opposed right now, but that is magical thinking. We are going to get there side by side, and we're going to drag one another into heaven, into collective liberation, kicking and screaming. Blessed be, beloved. I hope to see you at 2 o'clock today, and if not, I'm here all week. You are in my heart, and we're going to get there side by side. Would you rise for me for our closing benediction? And if you are near someone and they feel like it's okay to hold hands, you're welcome to hold hands. And if you want to just put your hands on your heart, you can put your hands on your heart. Oh, you can hear me now. And if you are watching, know that this thing called interdependence means that we are holding hands all the time. As you leave from this place today, I want you to take a moment, just take 5 minutes to put on Paul Robeson and listen to his clear, cool voice call to you from the ancestors.
For we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond.
And we, beloved, are called to risk ourselves for love.
Take courage, friends, the way leads on.
Because no one gets to heaven alone.
We get there side by side. Let the congregation say amen.
Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go.